Hi everyone, welcome to Into the Wild. Before we get on to today's show, Nadia and I would like to remind everyone that whilst Into the Wild is a super accessible show, we do occasionally let out the odd swear word. So if you're a young nerd, make sure you tell your parents that. And if you're someone that doesn't like swearing, then I'm sorry for all the shit, piss, fucks and whacks. Hi Nadia, welcome.
Hi.
Why am I welcoming you? Don't you just say hello?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, that's all right. Where are you? I don't recognise where you are.
I'm currently in Edinburgh, having just been on an adventure in Scotland.
Nice. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it. What? Because I
just wasn't as positive as I thought you were going to be.
It's just the summer holidays. And so there's an intensity of the amount of humans that also want to do a similar thing. Whilst I love people, and I make a point on this podcast a lot how much I love people, the specific intent behind going away was to have solitude, which I did not find. So there we are. Thank you, Scotland.
I've started to say that I love humans, but I don't always like people. Is that more accurate?
No, I feel like I don't know what that means.
It means I love what we can be, like what we're made up of. We're brilliant.
Oh, so humans in general are incredible as a species.
Humans in general, they're my favourite animal. I get along with humans way more than any other species. Like I'd rather hang out with humans than like rats.
Apart from Riley.
Ah, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell her I said that. No. Don't tell her I said that.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm really warm. It's a very humid day in London today. It rained last night, which was nice, but it is very, very humid. So, but I'm good. I'm in my nice palm tree shirt.
Yeah, nice. And what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking Dr. Pepper. Yeah, very, very nice drink. Soda, fruit-based drink, and we are open to sponsors, Dr. Pepper. So.
Always open to sponsors.
Always open. They've changed their motto. I didn't realise they did that. I thought it was still what's the worst that could happen, but it's so misunderstood since 1885. 1885?
Wow. Oh, I can really... Wow. I would have guessed it would have been an old one.
Would you?
Yeah, it's got like an aged kind of...
So it's a very aged soda.
You know what I mean? It's not like the modern drinks, which are like light blue and pink or yellow.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. No, it is that classic like cola colour thing. Yeah. But yeah. What are you drinking?
Just decaf tea. Again, open to collaborations.
Yeah. I'm going to stop asking.
I know. Should I be more? I am going out for a beer after this. Because it's the Fringe in Edinburgh.
Oh, have fun with that.
Okay.
I'm still not over the Fringe.
Okay. All right.
I'm still scarred from
Ryan did the Fringe once and he'll never go back.
No,
so yes,
3 times.
Did you? Did you? 3 times? Wow. Mm-hmm. I'm actually staying in a house where there are people who are staying here who are in the Fringe. And so I've heard various rehearsals coming through the door and it's just the weirdest experience.
Oh, I'm so sorry if it's an improv group.
I like improv. My life is improv.
The lowest art form. No, I'm joking. Shall we crack on with Nature Room 101?
Let's do it. This is exciting.
Let's bring in our guests. Nerds, we've got 2 guests that have been on the show before, and they're back to get angry about certain aspects of nature, which potentially could have happened on the episodes that they were on originally. I can't quite recall. But our first guest is Dr. Amy Jane Beer. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hello, my lovely. I'm very well.
Good. Have you had a good day?
I've had a mixed day.
Mixed
day. Yeah, it's school holidays, so trying to get anything productive done in the house is hard. So I've been doing lots of stuff that feels like productive but actually isn't.
Oh no.
So only time I tidy stuff is at times like this. So been opening drawers and tidying them, you know.
I bet the contents of Amy's drawers are really interesting though.
Yeah. What have you tidied recently in a drawer? What required?
Well, it was the drawer that had all the kind of pens and pencils, and so I now have pots. I've got
so random.
I've got a Lyle's golden syrup tin with all the pencils in it, and an old Marmite jar, like a ceramic Marmite jar with all the Sharpies in it.
A ceramic Marmite jar?
No, yeah.
So I know, Amy Jane Beer, that you are going away today, and I feel like that's a low priority of tasks to complete before all of them goes away.
Yeah, I feel like the word procrastination is coming up here.
That's exactly it. I'm a mistress of procrastination.
How do you like to get angry and rant? Bearing in mind this is the theme of the show. I can't imagine you doing so.
I'm generally not an angry person, but every so often it really boils up.
Really?
But I'm not an impressive angry person. I get kind of squeaky and sometimes tearful. So it's generally not my best. Today. No, I won't do that today. I'm more likely to get kind of shrill.
I just can't imagine you being someone that just kind of goes 1, 2, 3 and walk away.
I do a good sulk.
You do a sulk.
That's like the sort of slow burn anger rather than explosion. But occasionally a rant comes out and I surprise myself.
Yeah, and everyone around you.
Means business. Lovely. Well, thank you very much, Amy. So next, our other wonderful guest on the show today is Lee Schofield, our warden from RSPB Haweswater. And
manager,
author,
if you don't mind.
Site manager, sorry, warden.
Yeah, I mean,
God,
come on.
I don't know what's in the title.
A volunteer from the RSPB.
Volunteer. Occasional volunteer, seasonal volunteer.
Works in the cafe.
When I can be bothered.
Site manager for Haweswater RSPB. Apologies. Lee, how the hell are you?
Very good, thanks. I feel a bit left out that, like, I'm not Dr. Pepper or Dr. Amy Jane Beer. I'm just plain old Lee Schofield.
Is the doctor ever on the cards, Lee?
No. God, no. Unless someone wants to give me an honorary one for not really doing anything.
Yeah, wait.
If we're doing that, I'll take an honorary one.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah. If we're handing them out.
It's easy, apparently. Just hang around. Just keep working at Haweswater. Keep doing amazing things. Keep making them TV appearances. You'll get one. So what have you been up to today?
I've been away on holiday and I planned to have a day of being at home and catching up, and then all sorts of minor people crises occurred at work and I had to go rushing off to Haweswater instead and talk to people. So that was good. So it doesn't feel like I've achieved a great lot today, to be honest.
So where does that leave you in your kind of ability to rant today? Might that be a thing?
It's probably amped me up a little bit more than the day that I'd planned would have done. So
yeah. And is it something you do? If we were to ask your colleagues at work, does Lee like a rant? What would they say?
I'd like to think they'd say no. I think they've probably only heard me kind of raise my voice and get properly angry about once in the last sort of decade or so. But there's a lot of stuff kind of bubbling up underneath. I try wherever I can to sort of translate it into something useful and productive.
I imagine Lee's someone that when he goes really quiet, that's when people get nervous.
Yeah.
I reckon if he spends all morning not saying a word, people are like, leave him alone.
People can probably read me quite well.
Yeah, spot on, Ryan.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, well, is there anything you want our listeners to know that we've not mentioned yet, Lee?
Oh yeah, and you, Amy. Anything our listeners should know before your answers? What they should be bracing themselves for? Yeah,
what to expect today? Tell me about your preparation for our Room 101.
Mostly, I spoke to my good friend and colleague Annabelle Rushton, and she told me all of the things that you would have put into your Room 101, Nadia. So we're going to talk about cuckoo wrasses.
God.
I don't even know
what's wrong with a cuckoo wrasse.
Exactly. There's a whole nother episode here, probably. But
why even? When have you ever seen a
blast from the RSPB past? That's about 10 years or more than 10 years of history right there in that comment. I didn't know it was going to come and smack me in the face like a wet salmon.
Why don't you like?
You should definitely get Annabelle on this program because her suggestions were all brilliant. I mean, before we realised what the categories were, she was just so angry at the idea of a greenish warbler.
Yeah, okay.
And just because it's greenish, I mean, and I can completely see where she's coming from. I mean, it's probably a very nice bird, but greenish. I mean,
yeah, maybe we should just quickly add another category into stupid names for things.
Oh, that would be never ending.
Yeah.
Starting with greenish.
I'm not moving off this cuckoo wrasse thing until you give me an answer.
Do you know what it was? Do you know what it was? It's just, God, okay. So the RSPB does these wildlife pin badges, and they decided to do a cuckoo wrasse pin badge, which no one bought because they looked crap. No one knows what they are. They were just a peripheral, insignificant bit of wildlife that the general public isn't aware of, and they were just trying to flog these stupid pin badges. And your box would always be full of the cuckoo wrasse, and I'm sure they're lovely and colourful and rare and special.
They're not rare, but they're very colourful.
They're not rare? Maybe I thought they were.
I don't think they were. They're quite common around the UK coast.
Because so many people bought pin badges, learnt about them, and they probably did a read.
Amy, what about yourself? What should our listeners be aware, or if anything, do you want to give them a heads up?
Well, I'm going to have a rant about publishing, actually.
Brilliant.
Still said with so much love and kindness that I think everyone's like, well, we're ready.
That's author Amy Jane Beer.
Before we go on to these categories, we did actually do a shout out for one of them. So our first category, which we'll go into in a minute, was pathetic plants. And we actually did a shout out on social media to get people to suggest. But there was one person that I thought I do want to get his 2 pence first. And that was Leif Bursweeden, because I thought if I'm going to get someone to rant about plants, it's going to be my friend Leif. Leif put in, I want Amy and Lee to get your thoughts on this. He would like to nominate cornflowers for Nature Room 101. His reason is they're the flowery face of an industry that's greenwashing the shit out of wildflower meadows. He was quite angry. He actually called them f***ing cornflowers when he sent me the message.
Leif Bursweeden off of orchids?
No, I know. So he said everyone goes mad for them, and they're just like, he's just like, oh, what about dandelions? So Amy, Lee, what do you feel about cornflowers? Would you put them in, or would you go, no, they're all right?
Yeah, I'm with Leif, actually, but not just cornflowers, all of those pictorial meadows mixes that are really sold as the kind of pollinator bonanza and saving wildflowers. And they may be wildflowers, but most of them that are used in those mixes they're not British wildflowers. They're not native.
How do they get away with this?
Well, I think it's arguably better than bedding plants. You know, the sort of Victorian seasidey bedding plants, which are particularly vile, and like kind of bedding plants are a bit like, you know, those paint by numbers pictures that you used to get when you were a kid. So they're just sort of blocks of colour.
Yeah.
And so the sort of the mix and the spectacle of those pictorial meadows. I hope to explain what I mean by pictorial meadows. They're these sort of roadside and roundabout wildflower in inverted commas mixes. But achieving those is hugely destructive because they're all like agricultural weeds that grow on bare soil. So to create that beautiful display, you have to obliterate, normally using glyphosate, what's there previously, to get that beautiful display, which is long lasting and colourful and spectacular. And it's kind of averagely good for pollinators. But actually, if you just let what was there grow naturally, you'd have arguably a less dramatic display, but definitely something that was biologically more useful, more functional, ecologically more functional. So yeah, I would kind of put cornflowers in with all of that.
What about you, Lee?
I mean, when they're in the right place, they're jolly nice, but they've been kind of misappropriated, haven't they, into this strange sort of quasi nature industry. But yeah, see it in an arable field margin, lovely.
This is the thing with this show, is people want to put it in and then be like, oh, but they are nice, but it's usually what they represent.
Yeah, I mean, if I saw one out and about, I wouldn't be offended by it.
No.
But when Amy tells that story of them, I'm like, oh.
I'd love to meet someone that was offended by the sight of a cornflower.
Anyway, I do wonder though as well. Leif Bursweeden, I do wonder as well sometimes, is like, I don't know whether like social media or Instagram, because you'd see these really intense pictures of wildlife places sometimes, or like the really intensity of nature, that you want this like picture perfect thing, like a meadow with like a myriad of all these colours swaying different kinds of flowers is kind of what people want. But actually we've gone too far the other way in terms of getting people to like want wildlife, but actually it's not going to look like.
No. Yeah, we want the Instagram effect. That's what we want. We want it to look nice now for a long time, and we don't want to think about the work behind it or the potential negatives. That's what we want. That's why that exists. There was one more I will just say one more on Twitter from a guy called Andrew. He put in roses. He called them horrible, prickly bastards, and they don't know when to quit. He doesn't even think they look nice. So
what does he mean? What does he mean they don't know when to quit? They're not like ferocious.
I asked that exact question, Nadia Sheikh. I said, what do you mean they don't know when to quit? And he said, growing. There's a reason people are always pruning their roses, and that's because they don't have the decency to form a decent shape. I'm not putting roses in.
I don't know. I think he's describing plants. I don't think growing
all over the place.
Yeah.
Gives them the right.
Plants. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
okay,
I'm
you're
saying
wrong,
no to roses.
friend of the show.
Sorry, Andrew, if you're listening, but we're not putting roses in, bruv. We're just not doing it. Anyway, let's focus on what our guests have brought in. So let's go into our first topic on Nature Room 101. Right, well, we're carrying on with pathetic plants. So plants are super vital to life, but they ain't all pretty, kind, or particularly fun. Amy Jane Beer, what plant are you putting forward for Nature Room 101?
Well, my first thought was blue-green algae, but technically that's a bacteria. It's not a plant. It's cyanobacteria. It is a sort of chlorophyll-based photosynthetic life form, but it's not really a plant. So I probably can't have that. So I'm going to go for one which I think, well, I'm sure I won't be the only one, a Himalayan balsam. Just because as I'm looking out of my window now and I can see that pink haze in the woods, and there is a zone that I've managed to kind of just flog away at keeping clear. But I've spent so much time pulling the stuff that I can smell it at 1,000 paces now, and it offends me on a kind of multi-sensory level. I spend a lot of time by rivers, as you know, and so many of the rivers around here, from May onwards, late May onwards, they are just thick with the stuff. And when it dies away in the winter, as it does every year, it just leaves bare soil, and then that bare soil is running into the river. So yeah, it's a problem. I'm sure in the Himalayas it's fantastic.
That was going to be
so tell me,
question.
I want to ask one too.
Go on, you
Himalayan
go first.
balsam as a
I recognise that there are lots of. So you alluded to it there, which is a non-native plant. So it's something that has recently colonised, and I was always under the impression, and correct me, enlighten me, is that if we had like a really robust, healthy ecosystem and healthy biodiversity, is it harder for things to just kind of like colonize in that way really intensively? And so how has it managed to become so prolific? Like, what's its story?
It definitely does better in sort of when it has an opportunity, when it's given a bit of an in. So the woods near me, about 11 or 12 years ago, they did a really poor job of clear felling a load of trees through a very wet winter. And so there was absolute devastation of the ground flora with the vehicles moving in and out. And so it just created this blank space that the balsam just moved into with astonishing speed and took over. So I think there's definitely something in that. But because it likes wet places, and they often are quite disrupted, you quite often get these sort of, natural disruptions of wet places, whether it's flood events or whatever. So I think it would be there anyway. It does get knocked back when things dries out, but it's tough. It's impressive as a plant,
Pretty.
I can't see. I'm so far gone with it now. I can't see the beauty of it.
Yeah. Gaudy.
Yeah, gaudy.
How would you feel if you saw it in the Himalayas? Would you still be like, ugh?
Oh no. Same as
I think you would. To be honest, Amy, I think you hate it so much. It's fine.
I have been to the Himalayas, but I've not seen it. So I've obviously been to the wrong bits.
That's ironic.
But same as I would love to see grey squirrels in Carolina.
See, but I think that if I saw them in Carolina, I think I'd be like, ugh, grey squirrels.
Same old.
I wouldn't be impressed.
Parakeets.
Would it ruin your holiday to the Himalayas if you saw it?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Would you claim on insurance?
No, does that mean I can't have it in 101?
We don't know. It depends. It's all going to depend if Lee pulls us something out the bag.
I just feel like it would be a service. It would be a service to the nation if we could just stick it in 101.
But this is the thing. It would be a disservice to the Himalayas. Having a native plant just removed. But this is the tricky thing. So, Lee, what you got for us?
So mine is a bit personal. It's purple saxifrage, but it's not purple saxifrage everywhere. It's purple saxifrage just at Haweswater.
Wow.
Which is, I realise, quite specific. But when I started working at Haweswater a decade ago, there was this list of kind of very rare plants for the area. And over the course of the last 10 years, I've been trying to relocate them, and where possible, try to kind of give them a helping hand. So collect seeds from them, grow them on in our nursery, all that kind of thing. And purple saxifrage just refuses to be found. And there's this one record by Derek Ratcliffe from the 1970s up in this sort of quite remote mountain quarry that falls within the site. But Derek Ratcliffe was this amazing ecologist who recorded just like, he was a proper ecology polymath. You know, he knew plants, he knew birds, he knew fungi, he knew everything. And he had this sort of seemingly superhuman ability to go and find stuff in really remote places. And very uncharacteristically for him, for some reason, the specific location of purple saxifrage in Bleewater wasn't recorded. So all I inherited was it's in that 1 kilometre square somewhere. And it's a really bloody fussy species. So it's quite small and sprawling. It's very easily outcompeted by bigger, chunkier plants. But the really difficult thing about it is that it flowers really, really early, sort of March, April time, sort of depends on the altitude a little bit. So if you're going out looking for it, you have to make a special trip. You can't just kind of pull it into a survey that you might be doing for other things. So I've been out pretty much every year, I think, scrambling around in cliffs and crags in places that would make our health and safety officer shudder. And it just refuses to be found. And it's it is a pretty rare species. It's a very beautiful species. It's got these amazing, like really large purple flowers proportionate to the rest of the plant, which is really, really tiny. And yeah, you see it in some places in the Yorkshire Dales and stuff, and there's quite a lot of it. In the lakes, it's very few and far between. And it's just this really irritating thing that might still be there, but just refuses to give itself up to me.
It's interesting. This is interesting because this isn't the plant itself. It's your relationship with this particular situation.
Yes, it is.
I mean, one might call it a you problem.
You're going to put me in room 101.
Never on room 101 has anyone gone, I think this is more of a you problem.
This is a brilliant story, though, and really interesting, fascinating. Wow.
If you put this forward and we decide to put it in, if next March you find it,
we have to get it out again.
Are you going to write to us and be like, guys, we found it, get it out?
Yeah.
No, but is it not the case of its absence is going in room 101, so therefore it will be found?
It's my inability to find it that's going in.
I'm going to have to rule with the iron fist there. The plant will have to go in.
Will that be everywhere, or can I set?
No,
we would be everywhere.
Would be, we're getting rid of it. So.
And it would be, I would say, Lee, it would be an incredible move from you to force your experience onto the rest of the generation forever.
Yeah, it's true.
You would be the person.
I didn't find it. No one's fucking finding it.
Yeah, you'd be the person that introduced starlings to North America. Like, you'd be that guy that was like, I just miss them because they remind me of home.
I haven't really thought this through, have I?
I think you have. I think you know exactly what you've done. This is really interesting. We've got to decide which one to go in. I'll tell you where I'm at.
Okay, go on. Tell me, what are you thinking? Because I think you're obtuse as a person.
I don't really know what people mean when they say that.
I think you're going to be a bit awkward here.
Ouch. I get told that a lot.
Go on, where are you at?
I like the personal aspect of it.
Yeah, I knew this.
I think it's quite dark. But I'm so on board with Himalayan balsam. Yeah. So I share that experience more than I share Lee's. So
however, it is the attitude. It's the determination and personal relationship that Lee has forged with Haweswater that should be celebrated as a really important part of our natural history, heritage, and culture. Is those deep forged relationships with a local place and that evolved local knowledge that we hold. But having said that, whilst I appreciate the story, I hate Himalayan balsam because the smell makes me want to throw up.
And I had a different perspective to the Himalayan balsam pitch.
Okay.
So I was just in the Pacific Northwest. My brother-in-law and his family live out there. So despite the massive guilt about a big flight, that's where we've been. And over there is so much bramble and broom, as well as the starlings and the house sparrows and all of that other stuff that we brought across in our total lack of wisdom as colonizing despots. And, if you throw Himalayan balsam in, then by the same logic, you've kind of got to get rid of bramble and broom and house sparrows and starlings and all of the other things that we have exported that are causing absolute devastation. So I'm all over getting rid of Himalayan balsam over here. But, if we're going to be rational about this, then there's the implications.
Because rational is exactly the premise of the show.
Yeah, I know. That's
You're right. You make a good point.
In that case, Amy,
but if we're going with purple saxifrage, then that's everywhere as well, isn't it? And so,
God,
Lee.
Jesus. I think I need something stronger than a Dr. Pepper. I think.
Is there a place where purple saxifrage is causing a problem?
I really doubt it.
But
only horse water for Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
in one brain.
Right. Okay. I've picked it. I know what I
picked. Despite Lee's excellent rebuttal there,
Are we going with balsam?
I'm going to put balsam in the bin. And if that means starlings in North America go in the bin as well eventually, I'm going to go with it.
We'll do a bird one and then we'll do starlings. Right. Balsam.
Okay, well done, Amy.
Going in. Well done, Amy. We're doing it. I'm really sorry, Lee. There we go. Hey, sorry to interrupt the episode, Nature Nerds. It's Ryan, your host here. I just want to give you a quick shout out about something. Into the Wild always aims to be a free show, accessible for everyone. However, running it is not free. If you would like to support Into the Wild and say thanks, then you can do so by visiting ko-fi.com/IntoTheWildPod. The link is in the write-up of this episode. By doing this and buying us a coffee, you are helping the future of Into the Wild. Thanks very much, and back onto the show. Right, let's go. Gosh, that was intense for the first one.
That was intense. I don't know. I was thrown all over the place.
I feel wobbly. Right, let's go on to the second one. Nadia.
Bit of a funny one, this one. So it's academic annoyances. So the academic world has taught us so much, but it does have its issues. Either these could be mine and Ryan's issues that we're bringing to the world. But which part of the nature academic world would you throw in the bin? It's so much of what we know about nature, how we come to understand it, research it, it's underpinned by the academic world in a lot of ways. And so there has to be things about how we study the natural world, particularly with academia, that just rubs you up the wrong way, that you could say goodbye to forevermore deep in the vault to rub up against Himalayan balsam for all eternity. We started with Amy last time, so I think I'll start with Lee this time.
What you got?
Yeah, mine's a bit esoteric maybe. So it's kind of the idea that science gives us that we are somehow in control. I know that the whole point of science is that it's about learning, but it sometimes gives us this idea that we know what's going on, and we just clearly don't. Nature is just so complicated, and we will never, ever know everything. And this idea that we are in control leads to a whole load of really perverse outcomes, like things like management prescriptions in schemes, the idea that you must manage this particular field in this particular way in order to get this particular set of outcomes. It's just been patently shown not to work. That is the basis of our stewardship schemes and things. And while they have done some good, nature has continued to kind of swirl down the plug hole. So I think there is something occasionally a bit, this, I guess, is more about our kind of human arrogance that we think we're the top species, that we think we're in control. But science sometimes, I think, can risk sort of reinforcing that misapprehension.
Brilliant. Well, Ryan knows I'm a fan of that.
Dr. Amy Jane Beer, the scientist, will
destroy you. Interesting, though, that you say that, and it's a really interesting point, because if you go back to your previous answer with the saxifrage, like, there's so much that we don't know as to why it is not there. Presumably, I wonder whether there's a niggle there for you in terms of like, there will be so many complex intersecting issues around the natural world that you are not understanding that language or reading it from your point of view as well, which is presumably why it's not present. There's something you guys haven't got a grip on or don't understand potentially that's happening in the ecology of the place. With that,
yeah, and I think it's also this sort of scientific mindset sort of somehow pushes out the kind of the more spiritual side of things. So reading Robin Wall Kimmerer, who more so than anybody else somehow manages to blend that sort of scientific brain with that spiritual brain. I don't think, generally speaking, we as conservationists are particularly good at that, and it's almost a little bit shameful to kind of admit that you love nature as well as care about it and want to protect it. And I think science is clearly really important, and I'm not suggesting that we throw the whole way of thinking in the bin, but I think there are risks. I think there are ways that it sort of straitjackets our thinking that sort of pushes out other ways of seeing the natural world and our place within it.
Yeah, no, love it. We agree. You can learn about the ecology of a hedgehog, but not the essence. You can't know the essence of a hedgehog until you've sat and listened to one snaffling food in your garden.
And I'm hearing you're saying that, it's about a lot more having that balance as well of the thinking, isn't it? It's not like removing it altogether. It's like, well, there's just such an imbalance in how that thought process or work is done. It's like, we don't need to know everything.
Also, I was going to go on a separate side rant, which nobody needs. Let's find out if Amy Jane Beer wants to just absolutely hand in the towel and go with Lee, or has something completely different.
Well, Lee's that's not fair. He's invoked Robin Wall Kimmerer, which basically means I feel like I'm very much starting on the back foot. Academic publishing for me, because all the great stuff that science is producing, that academia or nature academics are producing, the vast majority of it is still published in a number of journals that are published by corporations that are among the most venal, money-grabbing that I know. And this stuff goes behind paywalls, astronomically expensive paywalls, or it goes into very limited print run books that cost an absolute fortune. And that's not what any scientist is doing the work for. The whole point of this kind of study is to produce knowledge with which to sort of move forward, to benefit not just the human race, but the planet as a whole, this sort of endeavor of humanity. And yet it disappears behind this huge paywall and becomes inaccessible. But actually, there are hacks. I mean, when I want a paper, I just track down the author and send them a nice email. And they're delighted to share it. And they'll always send you a PDF for nothing. So there's a tip there if you want the reference, don't pay for it. Don't pay for it, because why should someone else who didn't do the work be making money out of that? So there's that. But it also, the sort of culture that goes along with it, this sort of pressure on scientists, particularly in their early career, to produce a certain number of papers a year, is really unhealthy. And the jargon that goes along with it, this sort of style, I know this is something Ryan has ranted about himself, but that sort of feeds into it, this sort of expectation to communicate in a certain style, which is not actually a style that's designed for communication purposes. It's a style that's designed to sort of create this sort of sense of an elite, or it's exclusive. It's impenetrable half the time. I'm not a researcher anymore, but I do edit a lot of manuscripts for scientists whose first language isn't English, and they're publishing in journals which almost across the board for science are published in the English language. So they need some help to polish that up. So I'm still sort of not on the front line, but I'm in the trenches of that business, and I want to see that work out there. That should be the job of academic publishing, to get the work out there. So the more and more of these kind of free online, free access publications, the better. And there are these stupid rankings which tell you that they're not, it's not worth as much if it's published in one of those journals compared to one of the top. So this whole sort of league tabling, turning it into some kind of competitive structure is just really unhelpful. That's my
yes,
word.
yes, yes.
This is going to be a really, really hard one.
This is. I was thinking that as you brought, because when you said academic publishing, I was like, I wonder what route Amy will go down. But everything you've just covered there, I'm like, yeah, I've tried to. I know there was one recently. There was a research book or an academic book that came out, a journal, and it was like 125 quid.
What?
To get it. They were like, but this is ridiculous. This is not the price. This is meant to be something to, the whole point is science communication, to get this out to as many people as possible. And you've just failed at the first hurdle by putting £125 on the price.
I did not know this. I did not know that was the amount of money. I didn't know loads that you just said there, Amy. I didn't know that when you're a young kind of academic researcher, you are pushed to be productive in terms of the quantity of work that you put out there. I didn't know. I don't know, I guess just the extent of in fact, you know what it is? I've never actually questioned the paywall to papers before until this. I've always just gone like, oh, I can't access this. Someone will have it. And obviously, like the language thing I get and I understand. When I open, I mean, if I can get through the abstract, I'm done really, if I'm honest. And it's not because my brain isn't capable of thinking and having an inquiring, creative mind. I just don't understand why they're using the words that they're using.
Same. I have to, I know, and I put myself out there. I genuinely have to stop, look up the words so many times going, I don't understand what's being said here. Like, drop the pretentiousness and your ego and talk to me like a human being for a bit. Like, it's the same information if you just use words that everyone uses. Like, it really, it
so
makes
what,
me
is
feel
that just
so
elitism?
stupid.
Is that just elitism, or is that just like a culture of elitism? Or is there a reason, Amy? Can the paper be misconstrued?
Obviously, you have to use
common words
language, and there are times when that there is the entirely appropriate word, and that's one of the wonderful things about English. There's always a word or nearly always a word that's perfect. If not, we just steal one from another language. But there is usually a word. We have this absolutely colossal vocabulary, and that's wonderful. But because it's delicious when you've got the word that exactly kind of matches the concept. But in science publishing, those words are often sort of composite words. And yeah, they just seem to be designed to say, right, well, I am a scientist and I am communicating, therefore I will speak in this particular or address you in a particular way. And it's stuffy and it's clumsy. And yeah, I think it's just to show you're in the club. But it leaks. This way of communicating leaks, even when it's not. When a lot of these scientists are then writing for other purposes, for public communication. I used to edit a magazine for one of the wildlife charities who funded a lot of research, and the supporters magazine, we'd invite the researchers to come and tell the people that are actually funding their work, the people that are supporting that charity, what they've been doing and why it matters. And they'd send back these turgid, dry reports. And I'm like, no, I want the story. I want why this matters to you. I want to know what it's like out there in the field. I want to know how you feel about this species that your work's trying to monitor or save or conserve. And they really, really struggled. And I'd say, look, just pretend you're in the pub or sitting on your sofa with a cup of tea, telling your friend about this thing you've discovered and why it's important. And they just can't let go of that.
I'm seeing a link here with Lee's work. Lee was just saying, like, science in the absence of art and creativity and spirituality is this really dry thing. I used to train volunteers for the RSPB who would do meet and greet and welcoming for like the public. And I made this board game, which was based on the board game Articulate, where you get like cards with words on and you have to describe the thing without saying the thing. So I would give them these cards with really complicated concepts, or birds or wildlife, and they had to describe it without saying. So it might be like a cuckoo, and they're like, oh, it's like a big greyish bird that lays its eggs in other birds' nests. And I'm like, brilliant. So say that. Under the time pressure of like having to like describe this thing to somebody who they didn't know what their bird knowledge was to score points to do it quickly, they stripped it right back to the basics. And I was like, so you can do it, but I've heard you say to a visitor, this is a parasitic species and it's a seasonal migrant. And I'd just be like, damn it, you've gone back again.
Yeah, I think
it comes from this idea of taking yourself out of the writing, doesn't it? That's why it becomes so dispassionate. I remember writing my master's dissertation many moons ago, and that's kind of the last time I've had to do sort of proper academic writing, really. And just constantly you write I, and it's like, no, I must not say I, and like you end up in this really weird form of language, which is designed to be completely kind of impartial, which to a degree makes sense. It's got to be objective, but it does, it just makes it sound robotic, and it takes the human out of the research. And generally speaking, people, everyone gets really affronted, don't they, when they see science being done by somebody who seems to have some kind of vested interest. So I think the Chris Packham getting very het up about the guy that published the Grousemore stuff, who happens to be a shooter. It's like, well, it's not really very surprising that somebody is going to go and do some research into shooting who is interested in shooting, right? I mean, just like people who do research into ecology and biodiversity are generally people who are quite interested in ecology and biodiversity and looking after it. So
you'd hope.
So it's not really possible to make these things completely objective. And I wonder whether we really should be trying to go to quite the kind of dehumanizing level that we typically go to in science writing.
I do even like some of the work we've done, like in the trophy hunting debate, where we've tried to make it a bit more, we've humanized it a bit more. That's where we've had a lot of comments going like it's not objective enough, it's too biased one way. And it's like, I think we've just made it a bit more human. I think like we've added that level to it. And I think there's a lot of people on the academic side that can't deal with that, if that makes sense.
Something like that. It's an emotive issue, isn't it? It's not a rational issue. You can't make a decision about the rights and wrongs of trophy hunting based on science, can you? You can make a quantitative assessment of how it impacts populations, but like whether it should happen or not is a moral issue.
Yeah, and the solutions are people-based as well, right? So often the solutions around complex issues, whether it's human-wildlife conflict, are often like, well, we're going to have to get this community on board, so they're going to have to give a shit. So often the solutions, and I think, Lee, this is going back to your issue, which is massive bug in my bonnet, or a bee, which I would welcome with open arms. It's like you can look statistically at like our kind of protected landscapes and what's there and what's not there, and this really kind of like dry analysis of it. But ultimately, why are we doing this stuff? We're doing this stuff because we want change to happen. And the change can only happen because of relationships with humans, and those humans deciding to support something, to fund something, to give political weight to something, to take political weight away, to like dig up the plant and put the other plant there. Like ultimately the output is a human output. And so if you start off from a really dry place, it's really hard to retrofit emotion at the back end to try and make the change, because ultimately the science communication you were talking about, Amy Jambier, in the publication for the public, it would be way more useful to have the heart right at the beginning as part of it, so that the public was on that journey with that like emotion, because ultimately the thing that the scientist cares about isn't going to get funded for if the public doesn't care about the thing and isn't engaged with the thing anyway. So it's a moot point if the scientist is arguing, well, you're making it too fluffy, and it's like, well, your wages are going to disappear because no one's going to support you. Well done. But you can find, so I don't know.
I think what I like about your two answers, though, is that they really did start to merge into the very similar themes as well, though.
Ryan, you're not doing it. You're not putting them both in. You have to. I can see. Are you queuing us up to put two things in room 101?
I think I was. I didn't even know I was, but I think I was. Yeah, yeah. Shit.
Oh, right. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Is there anybody else in your house that, because I think we're going to pick different things. I think I'm going to go with Lee, and I think you're going to go with Amy. And I think we need it. What do we do?
How do we do this?
Oh, no, maybe we ask Lee and Amy to vote, because maybe they've switched sides.
I think we know how that will go, though. We can try it. So you each have one vote now.
Oh, God, I don't know.
What? I mean, Mine's a bit gassy and ill-defined, isn't it? It might just kind of waft around in room 101, whereas Amy's is quite solid and will sit there, and I'm prepared to acquiesce.
I'm very happy about that. Because what it means is, I think if we get rid of the academic institution of paywalls, complicated language, and accessibility, I think ultimately down the line we wouldn't have Lee's situation.
I was going to say the same the other way around, though.
Okay. So much
If we
or
got
nothing.
rid of that, then we wouldn't have this academic problem.
These things will drag each other down with them.
Are you
They
sure
will.
there's not room for... Can we put half of each in?
I mean, we could say we've discovered
Its
Oh,
own
God.
unique middle ground.
Oh, Ryan, I don't know, but I really think we're overthinking it now. We could do a research paper on this.
Let's get the data.
What data? Okay.
Okay, right. I'm gonna go with Lee.
This is a plot twist. I'm going to go with Lee because that's my world's biggest bugbear in nature conservation, which leaves people paying hundreds of pounds that I could...
Look, that involves me, and I'm willing to. I think
I've already given you the workaround for that, so you could probably be at peace
Amy.
with that.
Amy gave
Just
us
be
an
nice to a
actual
scientist.
tip.
Send them a nice letter, email, or get your quill out. But yeah,
Okay,
Please only ever write in a quill to a scientist.
we are putting our understanding of the natural environment and how that dictates how we manage and support it. In the absence of soul, art, creativity, love, and humanness, that is going in room 101.
With
God.
the hope to also drag in.
Open the big door for that one.
Right, let's move
Okay.
on to our last round. Shit sea life or stupid sea life. I can't remember what I put in the email, but we're going for stupid sea life. Sea life goes far beyond our imagination, yet some of it can go away and get in the sea or get in the vault. Amy Jane Beer, what part of the sea marine world do you want to put into Nature Room 101?
salt.
I think
It's the
that was
thing.
amazing. Everyone knows what you mean.
It's the one thing that just makes being in the sea. I mean, obviously not for all the other creatures that are there,
yeah.
but for me personally, it tastes vile.
Yeah.
There are so many times, when you've just ingested a bit too much, and you just
You get the shits, yeah.
Oh, okay.
well, wasn't going to say that, Nadia, but you do get a bit kind of balky and belchy and burpy, and it's just gross. And then everything's salty afterwards. I mean, if you camp, your sleeping bag after, it's all kind of manky. So it's just, salt. Notwithstanding the fact that it is the kind of saltiness of that environment that sort of, provided the medium in which life began. I mean, let's, just overlook that a little
There
bit.
are zero repercussions if we remove something, though.
Or could we just change the flavour of the sea somehow? Have a salt and sweet.
Dr. Pepper.
Salt and sweet like popcorn.
Exactly.
If we evened it out with a bit of sweet.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
Palatability of the sea.
So, you're right. It is salty.
I think it is the reason I don't like getting in the sea, actually. I know I dislike it, but I think I'd be more inclined to cold water sea swim if it wasn't salty.
This is why Amy's always in rivers.
Makes
I mean,
sense.
these rivers are full of shit, and so's the sea now. So,
Shit. Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah, good point.
That is brilliant,
Full
Amy.
of shit.
What
Yeah.
salt do you buy for the house?
Malden, posh
Yeah.
salt.
Is that
Yeah,
coarse
That
sea
is
salt,
sea
though?
salt. Yeah.
So
But I
is this
get
part
that
of your
from
mission
somewhere
to remove salt slowly from the sea by putting it into your food?
Yeah, because the
cross
sea
box
is
at a time.
getting saltier all the time. The salt is coming from dissolved
Is it?
mineral salt. Yeah, that's why the
I
sea's
thought it was
salty.
getting less salty because icebergs were melting.
Well, that might be having a slight ameliorating effect, but over time, more salt is coming into the sea because it's coming from the rocks. The rivers are bringing it, in a very dilute fashion. But when the water evaporates from the oceans and goes back into the atmosphere and back into the rivers, it leaves the salt behind.
Okay,
Just
right.
show me how little I know about the sea.
Oh, Ryan. I don't know how deep you're going in this, Ryan, but I'm starting to think about, okay, so if that didn't impact any of the species evolution that require salt to be part of their lifestyle, like I'm going anyway.
I can't get chips out of my head at the moment. That's all I've got.
That's
in my
where
head.
it belongs. Because I discussed this with my son, with Lockie, last night. I said, what do you think about the sea, and I said, what do you think about salt? He went, salt belongs on your chips, not in the sea.
I'm so glad I'm on the same level.
Yeah. We don't want to get rid of salt altogether, just salt from the sea. Again,
Okay.
It's that whole problem about Room 101 will be lose it from everywhere, in which case we'd all instantly die.
No, because salt exists outside of the sea. There are other salts. Right,
Himalayan rock salt.
Himalayan rock salt, yeah.
If you're in Hampstead.
Or in Delhi, any Delhi. Lee, what beats salt?
Sand.
Oh no!
We're both going quite fundamental here, aren't we?
Yeah, you are.
It's you're really stretching the sea life.
I mean, last time I went ocean sunfish, but okay. Come on, and why sand?
Just because it gets everywhere, doesn't it? It's so annoying, and you know, especially the kind of the damp sort of gritty stuff, and you sort of dust it off your leg with your hand, and then it's stuck on your hand, and you try and dust it off with your other hand, and it's on that hand, and it just very annoying, and it ends up in the car, and it's just whenever we go to a sandy beach, we just always we just go to the rock pools, or we go into the water, or we go. You know, and it's just boring, isn't it? The sand, and everybody lying around on it, getting a suntan. I mean, just the sort of the really dull bit that I just have no truck with at all. And I think it's just ecologically. I know it's got things that live in it and all that, but like, I like messiness and complexity, and sand is just a bit dull, isn't it? You know, it's all flat and yellow and boring. Give me rocks and pebbles.
So would you give up? Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, you're right. Oh God,
where do you stand on a desert? Not physically. I'm not asking where would you stand, like probably in the shade, but where?
Well, that depends on whether it's a desert that's meant to be a desert or a desert that's desertifying because we've climate over so badly.
Desert is in natural, like
meant to be a desert. Yeah, don't go down that. Jesus.
Well, yeah, you know, good opportunity for solar power. Is the way I think about it.
But sand-wise, not always sandy deserts, but
it's the sea sand relationship, right? I think that's what Lee's getting at, and I think that's fine. But so, can I just, if you could remove the sand and put like another substrate, if you were going to the seaside and you were getting out the sea, what would you like your feet to be emerging
like
from the sea?
A big round pebble like you get on Exmouth Beach that kind of makes that wonderful kind of clacky sound when the waves come into it. You know, way better than boring on sand.
Okay. You're going with a giant pebble.
That the sea just laps up.
I forgot he doesn't lay. He doesn't lay down. I went immediately comfort, and I was like, if we're picking anything, moss.
Sea moss
is good.
Yeah, maritime heath, that lovely springy turf.
Yeah,
lots of thrift
a bit of
and chamomile mixed in with it. Yeah, be nice.
Do a bit of yoga on that after a swim.
But I have to fight back here because I think sand is really interesting.
They're doing it again.
Yeah, go on then.
They're going to battle. Go on, Amy.
Well, it's different on every beach. I was on the Isles of Scilly a few weeks ago, and I can't remember why I was looking up sand. I think I wanted to know what made it sparkly, because some of the beaches there, the sand is really sparkly, like it's like kind of disco floor, nightclub floor tiles, sparkly. And there's a guy who's been taking pictures of all the different sands on every different beach on the Isles of Scilly, and high zoomed in macro photography, and every single one is different. And I bet there were sailors that used to, would know the beach, the sand of a particular beach, so they'd know where they'd washed up or whatever. They could probably navigate by just kind of looking at the sand, the color of it, the texture, the grain size, whether it's made of shell or quartz or granite or whatever. I mean, that's cool. That's cool.
It's small rocks, though, isn't it?
It is. Well, exactly. It is small rocks. But if you got rid of sand, you'd also be getting rid of sandstone.
Sand castles.
Sand castles.
Yeah.
And I get it that it's really annoying in your cracks and crevices.
Decale.
That's why you need
they like pebbles.
talcum powder in your swim bag.
You've both gone
granular.
I didn't think you were going to go granular. Not where I thought you were going to go, because I would say if you said to me what are my two least favorite things about a beach, and not about visually, I'm going, if I was visiting a beach, I would say the salt and sand, because they are.
Amy, do you know what's the sea? Is it the Dead Sea that's got like no salt or loads of salt?
Loads of salt, yeah. So
you float.
Yeah.
So no salt, we'd sink.
Well, no, because you don't sink in the river, but you become slightly more buoyant because it's relative.
I just want to think about the repercussions on a buoyancy level.
I know, but I know your brain went like, without the salt, you just drop immediately.
I'm okay with where I'm at mentally at the moment. Which is not firing on all cylinders,
No.
which is okay. God, so
It
you
does
would
help
be
you swim in some ways. The sea is you're more buoyant in the sea than you are.
so you'd be
fresh
less
water.
buoyant. So it would make snorkeling easier.
Yes, because you'd be a little bit more sinky.
Yeah, because one of my biggest problems is my buoyancy in snorkeling.
Is it?
Yeah, I've really
That's
struggled
one of
to go
your
down.
biggest problems?
Yeah, if not the biggest problem. I can see something and I'm just not good at getting to it.
Yeah, I think that's quite a female thing, Nadia. I relate to that.
Is it? Where does
buoyancy
my
bag.
buoyancy exist? Oh, is it our boobs?
Nadia, are you okay?
Well,
We're
I
all
am
arriving
now,
to
I
the
know
point
it.
about half an hour before you are.
Jesus. Okay, Ryan, go on.
salt
What are you
or-
thinking?
My
God.
gut is saying salt, because I think I like to lay on the beach. Therefore, a pebbly beach does not deliver as much as a sandy beach. And I do like to swim, but I hate. Although salt's very good for my hair after a swim.
Is it?
It seems to do nice things to it. I don't know what the science is, but it always looks good afterwards.
You're leaning
Right.
for sand, though, aren't you?
No, I'd rather I think I've said before once in
No,
my
you're
life.
leaning for salt.
Yeah, I wish the sea had no salt in it because I would probably swim more. I think so. So I'm going to go with salt.
Okay, ignoring the fact that if you did get rid of salt, anything that relies on a salty environment would also die. If we can that's not on the no.
That doesn't happen with Room 10, Nature Room 101. There's no repercussions, it just goes.
Are you sure? Because I feel like we've discussed repercussions before. depending on how difficult
If we're
it is.
having
to argue.
repercussions, we've a lot.
the planet is absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, no
no.
repercussions.
Things can still live in it.
Salt can get in Room 101.
Okay.
Sorry,
there we
Lee.
go.
I actually like a sandy beach. Sometimes I actually actively sit and exfoliate my own legs and skin whilst I'm on the beach. How gross is that? Who's ever sat after where I've been sitting? It's a DNA nightmare.
And all those little fish that come in with the tide. Like
I
little
love having my
tasty
fish
bits of
nipples.
Nadia.
Yeah.
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 Well, there we go. So in Nature Room 101 on this series, this episode, we have, what do we start with? Himalaya Balsam is in there. Then we have, how are we title the middle one?
Oh, God.
The robotic science brain.
Let's call it Heartless Biodiversity.
Heartless Biodiversity is going in. And then lastly, we have salt.
I think
From
we're
the
making
sea.
the world a better place. Thanks, guys.
I hope we are. That just leaves us to say thank you to Amy Jane Beer and Lee Schofield. Thank you so much for being on the
Thanks,
show.
guys.
Very calm rants. We've had more intense rants before. Very calm, but very important points. And I do like the way you both battled with each other.
We enjoyed it. Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
No
Not
worries.
stressful at all.
Thank you very much, nerds. Nadia and I will see you on our next episode. Just a reminder that on October 14th, we have a live Nature Room 101 at Oxford University Museum. Tickets will be on sale in September. You can go by the Oxford University Museum website and check
Natural
out
History Museum, specifically.
There we go. Specifically, check our socials and the write-up of this episode, and the ticket link will be there. And don't forget to obviously subscribe, follow us on social media, all that jargon. But thanks very much for joining us on this episode of Nature Room 101.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the show, nerds. If you don't already, make sure to follow us on social media at Into the Wild Pod on Twitter and at Into the Wild Podcast on Instagram.
And if you're able to and would like to, you can support the show by tipping us at ko-fi.com/Into the Wild Pod. That buys us the equivalent of a coffee, and we use it to fund more podcasts for your ears.
But until next time, keep well and live the good life.